Keri is an author and wholeness advocate. She studied or taught many modalities of spirituality and healing, including yoga and Ayurveda. Her writing has appeared in Spirituality and Health magazine, the Star and Tribune, Elephant Journal, and others. She's currently working on her second book, an illuminating exploration of personal and collective transformation that will empower readers to evolve their consciousness for an uncertain future. Her first book, Embodying Soul, A Return to Wholeness, is available in the Garden Room following this event. So if you will, help me welcome Keri Mangis.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ella. I am so honored to get to be here today. I always am. And especially in this time that we're living in right now. And especially with the theme of today of finding inspiration. I'm really excited to get to share with you my particular brand of inspiration, which is not the flowery kind, and not the fairy dust kind. It's not the kind of inspiration that is going to tell you that there is some greater meaning and purpose and you don't have to worry about anything and you can just opt out. Instead, it's the kind of inspiration that is designed to awaken your soul and draw up the wisdom that you need to live and bring your gifts into this time. This time that we're living in, many spiritual teachers and mystics call a liminal time. A liminal time is a middle stage. It's betwixt and between. Liminal is a time where the world as we knew it is falling apart. The world that has yet to come is not here. We're in the middle. Many things can happen when we're in the middle. We can either use this middle time to dream, to imagine, to heal, to connect, to reflect, to renew. Or we can take our fears and our anxieties and our worries and our apprehensions and we can project them onto a future that is yet unwritten. And if we do that, then we are helping to create that world that you fear, rather than participating in the recreation of a new world. We've all been in liminal times before. We're in one culturally right now. You have also been in liminal times in your life. If you think back on the trajectory of your life, see if you can just kind of pin a couple times where you were no longer who you were, but you were not yet reborn into something new. Perhaps it was instigated by the loss of a job or a relationship or a loved one. Perhaps it was just the loss of a belief or a worldview or a broken promise. But for some reason, the way that you were engaging in the world and the identities through which you were engaging in the world broke down, fell away. You left them behind, and you weren't yet someone new. Can you think of some of those times in your life? You didn't know what was possible. Now think about the rebirths that occurred after. Think of how powerful they were. Think about how surprising they were. This is the excitement and the possibility of being in the liminal, and we are in it. We are in that space between the caterpillar and the butterfly, in the papyrus, right? And I always imagine like two caterpillars talking to each other, and one saying, you know what? I dream of a world in which I can fly. And the other caterpillar just laughing at him and saying, "What are you talking about? There is no way that you can fly, you're crazy." And the other caterpillar just saying, "Yeah, but I feel it. I can't put my finger on it, but I just feel that something so much greater is possible. And I know I sound crazy, but I'm gonna go for it." And you know what it takes for a caterpillar to go into that papyrus, or the chrysalis? I think I have the wrong term. It has to completely lose its form, completely. Break down into something that looks a little like pea soup. The only thing that remains are some cells that are actually called the imaginal cells. They are the cells that cannot be broken down or destroyed or lost or forgotten about, no matter what else falls away. It is your essence. We too carry imaginal cells within us. We too can become something so completely different as individuals and as a culture if we trust in the gift of the liminal space that we're in. Now, as I share some inspiration today, I also will be sharing some quotes from people who inspire me and keep me awake and alive and present, even when emotions sometimes threaten to overwhelm me. One of those teachers is Caroline Miss. Some of you might know her. She's a spiritual teacher. She teaches on archetypes. And I recently saw a Facebook Live that she did. And she said something like this. She said, "I wish I could be alive 100 or 200 years from now so that I could see if we took advantage of this time, if we did with it what's really possible, or if we squandered it away, or if we forgot our power. I too wish I could see what we do with this time 100 or 200 years from now. I want to see for myself personally if I stay true to the principles and the convictions that I say that I believe in. I want to see if I hold to them no matter what comes. And no matter how many opportunities I may have to trade them away for something maybe safer. Because I'm committed to continuing to use my voice and to share my truth and to be in my power. I am committed to not getting small or quiet or withdrawing or opting out. These are my commitments. I hope you can hold them to me or hold me to them. Another source of inspiration for me right now is Ram Dass. And I came across a quote of his, and I want to get it right. I don't know when he wrote this, but he may as well have written it yesterday. He says, "I've been asked many times whether this is the Aquarian age and it's all just beginning, or if this is the end and it's the apocalypse. And I have to admit, I don't know. Whichever way it goes, my work is the same. My work is to quiet my mind, open my heart, and relieve suffering wherever I find it." How simple, how perfect. And that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to work on opening our hearts, quieting our minds, relieving suffering. We're going to talk about how we can ground that deep inside us, because this is my kind of inspiration. It's the kind of inspiration that roots inside you, that grounds inside you, that you plant. My kind of inspiration isn't the flowery kind because I want you to seed it. I want it to grow within you and carry it with you and share it with everyone you meet. And so I'd like to bring us into a meditation, to bring us into this space where we can quiet our minds and open our hearts. And so, if you would please, bring your feet on the floor and sit as tall as you can, aligning your spine from your tailbone all the way up and through the crown of the head. Take your shoulders, roll them forward, up, back, and down. Let your heart lift and open. Close your eyes whenever you're ready. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth, and settle in. We're going to move through the koshas. We're going to open up the lines of dialogue between us and our soul. And to do that, we have to touch the layers that surround the soul. And these are the koshas. The first layer, the most outermost layer, is the Annamaya kosha. This is your physical body, your bones, your muscles, your tissues. It's your skeleton, your brain. Bring your awareness to your physical body and bring relaxation and openness into it. Make space between the vertebrae. Make space between the skin and the muscles. Let the muscles release their hold on the bones. Soften. Release. Create an opening there through the physical body, scanning for any areas of tightness or tension, breathing into that area and inviting it to release. Next, we'll move to the Pranamaya kosha. This is the breath layer. And so bring all your awareness to your breath. Notice that as you inhale, the air is a little cooler. And as you exhale, it's a little warmer. And just follow the path of your breath. That's all you're doing. Follow it as it comes in and then down into the belly. Follow it as it moves out. See if with each breath you can draw it down just a little deeper into your belly, all the way beneath your navel, if you can. Take your time getting the breath that deep. You'll have to relax a lot of the abdominal muscles and tension that surrounds it. And now at the top of every inhale, expand the space just a tiny bit. You're not holding the breath, but you're simply elongating. You're simply making space. And then the exhale follows. And at the bottom of your exhale, elongate. Make a little space, a tiny pause. And in those pauses, let your awareness sink even deeper. And relax that practice. Next, we're going to move to the Manomaya kosha. This is the layer of your mind, your thoughts, and your emotions. And no matter how turbulent they may have been before, notice them begin to quiet and settle simply by being acknowledged, simply by being seen. Make space between the thoughts, between the emotions. Yes, they still come up. It's okay. We're not silencing the mind, we're quieting it. Now we're going to move in to yet another layer, the Vijnanamaya kosha. This is the layer of your intuition, your higher mind, your inner knowing, your inner compass, your self-love, your self-trust. Feel into that. Feel into that part of yourself that knows exactly what to do next, what to do in times like these. And open up that layer to reveal the Ananda Maya Kosha, which is the layer that directly surrounds the soul. It is the bliss layer. It is the layer of oneness consciousness, where we are all one, where there is no such thing as us and them. Come into that reality. As much as you can, invite this space of bliss and oneness and knowing who you are and why you're here. And once that layer opens, it reveals the soul. Here is your soul, your essence, that part of you that can never be broken or hurt, that part of you that will live on long after this lifetime. And now bring the energy of the soul back through the layers, back through the Anandamaya Kosha, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the Manomaya Kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha, and back into the physical body, the Annamaya Kosha. Feel the openness in the space in your body and your mind. And then when you are ready, you can slowly open your eyes. I'd like you right now to notice how this feels, this sense of peace and centeredness. The practice of meditation isn't about how long you can be still. It's a practice of coming back into this state of being more and more often so that you can come into this state of being when you really need it. When times are challenging, you've got this as a memory in your body. And I want to remind you, if you don't know, these talks are recorded and they're saved on the Lake Harriet Spiritual Community's YouTube site. So you can do this meditation anytime you want. Come back to it. And I invite you to do it, and I invite you to try it both seated and lying down. When you're seated, it's going to be a little bit more of how you're feeling now, awake and aware. What we'd call in yoga, sthira and sukha, steadiness and ease. And when you do it lying down, it's going to be more rejuvenative. So also, see if you can hold on to this feeling as we go through today's talk. And if you find yourself getting caught up, just come back to your breath, come back to this feeling. So I wanted to share a little bit today about my liminal spaces and how it's brought me to this moment here today. I have lived in many liminal spaces. As was introduced, I was a yoga teacher for over 20 years. I also practiced Ayurveda, which is a Indian science of self-healing. And in between those two roles, there was a liminal period of time. And then after those roles, there was a much longer liminal time before I actually came into sort of the role that I am in now, which is as an author and speaker and writer. And I will tell you that while in these liminal spaces, I had no idea that I would one day be an author. I was so caught up in my role as a yoga teacher, I couldn't see beyond it. And it was only when I let that go that the new possibility opened up for me. And I remember it wasn't something that, like when I decided to let go of teaching, I couldn't really explain why. It wasn't that I didn't like it anymore. It wasn't that I hadn't built something really beautiful and wonderful and people that I loved. But there was just an inner knowing that I had to move on. And I trusted that. And then in the second liminal time, I decided to go to Myanmar for a personal reflection. And it was then that I decided that I was going to start writing. But I still wasn't really sure how and what I wanted to write about. And it's only been in these last decade or so that I've decided, you know what, it's transformation. Transformation, human transformation, the possibility of transformation through the death stages and the liminal stages and the rebirth cycle. I wanted to talk about what it looks like when we live into our cycles, when we trust that sometimes we fall into a liminal stage for a reason, when we trust that sometimes things fall apart for a reason. My work on transformation has differed from traditional self-help work or personal growth work because it involves and accepts the whole cycle. But then in recent years, I've realized that, well, the work of transformation requires breaking things down, right? It requires getting to the root of things, going back to the beginning of who we are and questioning why we believe what we believe, or why we do what we do, or why we pretend to be this or that. And I found that what I really wanted was to show people that times of crisis are when this work can really begin. So my work has sort of shifted from transformation in general to transformation in crisis. And so I created the crisis guide. And I've got one of these for each of you after the talk today so you can bring it home. But, you know, I call the crisis a turning point. Because what does a crisis do? Whether it's a personal crisis or a collective crisis, it breaks down what we think we know is true. It breaks down our sense of meaning. It might break down how we feel we fit in our lives. And it carries you automatically into a liminal stage. I don't know how often we would go into a liminal stage and go into a time of reflection and questioning and imagination if a breakdown didn't happen first. I mean, if everything in your life was just going along on a trajectory, why would you ever question anything? Why would you ever return? Sometimes the crisis is what's needed to draw us into a liminal stage and to give us the opportunity of a rebirth. You cannot have the rebirth without the crisis. We can't keep trying to fix problems with the tools that the world created. There's a saying that says you can't fix the master's house with the master's tools. You have to return to other places, to the origin, which we will talk about in a little bit, where we can reimagine and recreate possibilities. So in the crisis guide, I have 8 strategies to carry you through a crisis. But first of all, a lot of you, if you've been in my talks before, you know I love etymology, studying the origin of words. Crisis in Greek actually does mean turning point, which I love, which connects with this whole idea. I think our traditional understanding of a crisis is that it's a time of great danger or difficulty or trouble, but it's a turning point. There's a possibility, there's an opportunity within crisis. In Japanese, crisis is made up of 2 words, 2 symbols. The first one means danger, and the second one means turning point. So when we really study this word, maybe it isn't so scary. Maybe there's actually a lot to be learned within a crisis, and a lot of things that we can do once we find ourselves in one. So the first one is get disillusioned. Already, a crisis does that, does it not? Already, a crisis starts to break down the illusions that we have about the way that the world works, or the way that the world is supposed to work, or the way that people are supposed to act, the things that people are supposed to do, the way laws are supposed to work, the way norms are supposed to work, the way institutions are supposed to work. A crisis starts to break those down and disillusions ourselves. It's kind of like children realizing Santa Claus isn't real. It's kind of like realizing that your favorite teacher was actually just human. It's kind of realizing that your guru was just human. But think about the times where you have been disillusioned by a person or a thing. What did it reveal? It reveals a greater truth. It reveals a higher reality. And so if it's happening already, if we're already becoming disillusioned, why not continue that process? Why not dig more into the myths and stories that our culture has told us since childhood and ask if they're actually true, or if they're beneficial, or if they're just creating more division? There is a book by Gabor Mate called The Myth of Normal. It examines the whole idea of what normal is supposed to be. What a great time right now to be reading such a book. I have been writing articles lately revealing different myths of our culture. My favorite one is the myth of scarcity. How many of us have grown up believing that natural resources are scarce, that love is scarce, that opportunity is scarce, that belonging is scarce? How many of us have grown up believing that we have to fight for these things? And who do we fight? Each other. It's all built on a myth. When we release the myth that there's scarcity, then we believe in something greater, that there is enough. There is enough. And then we know that the dog-eat-dog world that they sell us, the way that they tell us, that only the fittest survive, we know that it's all garbage. That it's not true. That there can be a better world where we help each other, where we hold each other, where we care for each other, where there is enough to go around, where we don't have to fight for things. Imagine that world. All of the myths of our culture point to a central lie, that it's us versus them. It's a lie. But everything is built on it. There is a greater truth to be found, and that is the truth that all is one. That is the great truth that underpins every single spiritual and religious and philosophical practice. All is one. We are not different. We are not separate. When someone else suffers, we suffer. It is not them. It's not happening over there. It's here. The war is here. The greater truth is harder sometimes to hold, but wouldn't you rather live in a world of truth than one of lies, of division and strife and competition? I know that that's the world I want. That's the world I want to recreate. That's part of my responsibility in this liminal time, is to help seed the inspiration of creating a world built on a central truth that all is one. I have a quote here for you from G.J. Ballard. It's an English author. He says, "Civilized life is, based on a huge number of illusions in which we all collaborate willingly. The trouble is we forget after a while that they are illusions, and we are deeply shocked when reality is torn down around us." I'm not going to collaborate willingly anymore. I hope you'll join me with that. The second one, fall into disbelief. When beliefs already begin to fall apart, kind of like illusions, it's an even better time to work on your own belief sets. Whereas disillusionment is more about the myths of the culture, now you get to look at the myths of your own self. The things that you say to yourself, the things that you have held on to, your hand-me-down beliefs, your handy beliefs, the beliefs that, as Don and I were talking about before, the beliefs that carried you through one life stage, but maybe have no value for you anymore. Maybe they're actually holding you back. When is the last time you've done a good inventory of your beliefs? Really taken stock of what you're carrying around everywhere you go. I did an exercise, had to be about 15 years ago. It was a Byron Katie exercise. Maybe some of you know her work, and it's actually called The Work. Yep. And what you do with this exercise is you go through a 4-stage process with beliefs. And so I did this. And so I have a journal entry, it's still fun to look back on, where I titled it, Things That I Believe Are True But Probably Aren't. And I wrote down as many things as I could possibly come up with. And yes, I was in a liminal stage at this time. And I just wrote it all down, just everything. And one of them was, my kids should eat what I cook. And so I took that belief through this 4-stage process, and it went a little like this. My kids should eat what I cook. Is it true? That's the first question. Is it true? Well, yeah, it's true. I mean, other kids eat what their moms cook. And I mean, I don't hear anyone else complaining in it, and they're my kids, and yes, they should eat what I cook. Okay, second question, can you know for certain that it's true? Well, I mean, I guess I don't know for sure. I mean, I haven't asked everybody if their kids eat what they cook, but I mean, it would make me feel better if they ate what I cooked. Question number 3, how does it make you feel when you think the thought, your kids should eat what you cook? I mean, it kind of makes me feel mad. It makes me feel frustrated. It makes me feel inadequate. It makes me feel like my kids are weird. It makes me feel like this whole motherhood thing isn't for me. It makes me question my whole reality, my whole understanding of what motherhood is. And it's just, final question, who would you be without that thought? I mean, I think I'd feel a sense of relief. I think I'd feel a little bit less like it was a problem I had to solve. I think I'd maybe realize that it had more to do with them than it did with me. Maybe I would just be able to say to them, there's peanut butter and jelly in the fridge, go make something. Maybe it would give me freedom. And if it can do that for a belief like that, imagine what it can do with some of the bigger beliefs that we carry. Number 3, unlearning. I am a learner by nature. I love learning. I am always reading. I am always collecting knowledge. It is one of my favorite things to do. When I took the StrengthsFinders test, learning and student, I got both of them. Unlearning. Unlearning is about accepting that even this too should go through a cycle. That there are times in which our learning is just hardening us into place. Our knowledge is becoming obstinate. It's making us inflexible. It's making us incurious. It's making us less valuable to one another. When we become so staunch and firm in our beliefs that no amount of ideas and what ifs can get in anymore, it's time to unlearn. Now, when you're young, learning is important. Keep learning, keep growing. When we get older, that's when it's time to start returning back to that place of curiosity and what if and possibility. We really need that right now. Another quote here, Alvin Toffler, an author, he said, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." How perfect, right? Death, birth, rebirth, these cycles, this is what we're missing so much in our forward march life. We're missing the cycles. We're missing that ability to undergo and willingly undergo cycles. Isn't this getting exciting? All of these things that we can be doing and working on because we happen to find ourselves in a liminal stage. There's more. Silence and solitude. Dropping into times and spaces of silence and solitude. We don't spend enough time alone, and we don't spend enough time in silence. I did a whole talk on silence, solitude, and stillness here, I think in the springtime. And it was so rich with understanding how much of our lives are surrounded by noise and activity, and how hard it is to pull ourselves away from that. This is a deep, important practice because what it does when you practice sitting in silence and solitude, it moves you from chronos time, which is a horizontal, chronological, linear, logical, past, present, future timeline, opens up a portal to the kairos time, which is the time of magic, which is God's time, which is the time of oneness, which is eternal time, in which you can experience that oneness consciousness that we felt in the bliss layer as we went through the meditation. That's the gift of Kairos time. You have all experienced Kairos time when you were touched deeply by a piece of music or an act of love or an interaction in nature or just spontaneously. You've all had those epiphany times where you just felt connected. You can either wait for them to come, or you can invite them in by dropping into times of stillness and silence and let that portal open. I also want to talk just a little bit about the practice of stillness because we're in a culture of constant movement as well, and what it really means to be still. And I was doing yin yoga practice training 2008. Has anyone ever studied yin yoga? Y-I-N? I find it the most valuable practice in a liminal time like we're sitting in right now. Even maybe more so equal to meditation practice. A yin yoga practice is when you are in a posture or a shape for a period of 5 or even 6 minutes. Now, it's not the big poses, the warrior poses and those. They're seated poses. But I will tell you, they're uncomfortable after a little while. So let's just say a butterfly position, right? You're just sitting with the soles of your feet together, and you're just folding over, and you feel a little stretch. And then you stay, and you stay, and you stay. And what you learn is how to be with discomfort, how to not run from it, how to breathe within it, even when you don't know when it's going to end or if it's going to end. My time studying yin yoga was so memorable and still is so imprinted on me. And one of the things I remember was that part of our practice, we were practicing in Thailand outside. Part of the practice was that even if a mosquito landed on you, to stay still, to not swat it. We always swat the mosquitoes, don't we? I mean, just in life, we're always swatting the mosquitoes. Whatever form they're taking, we swat. What a practice right now to learn how to just sit, to just experience the sensation of that creeping, crawling, whatever it might be. The next one. Traveling to the imaginal world. I hinted at this a little bit. There is a world that lives behind this one. It is the world that made this one. That's the imaginal world, the mundus imaginalis. That is where we go. We are closer to it in the liminal stage than we are at any other time in life. And that's where we go. It's the place where the crayons are to create this world. It's the place where we go to reconnect with what's possible versus only working with what's available. You can access the imaginal world through meditation. You can access it through dream work. You can access it through active imagination practices. Any way you can get there, just slide into that portal where if somebody says to you, you can't fly, you said, no one says that. Not here. Anything is possible here. We're not working within the paradigms that exist and the frameworks that we've been told are real. No, we're working from God's palette. All right, the next one's a biggie. Practicing compassion. Remember, we talked about the 3 things that our work involves, which is quiet mind, open heart, and relieving suffering wherever we can find it. Did you know that the etymology, the root of the word compassion, means to suffer along with? Compassion is a practice of relieving suffering. Compassion isn't pity, we know that. Compassion isn't even empathy. Compassion isn't feeling sorry for somebody or patting someone on the back. Compassion is, I suffer along with you. Because we are human. Because there is no such thing as us and them. So we suffer. Because I maybe don't know exactly what you're going through. But if it's bringing you sadness and grief, I know sadness and grief. I can feel that. It feels the same in you as it does in me. There is a Tonglen meditation practice. It's a Buddhist meditation practice. And I love it, and it's a compassion practice. And what you do is you start with yourself. Because a true compassion practice knows that compassion towards others means nothing if you don't first give it to yourself. So this meditation of compassion starts with yourself, offering yourself compassion for whatever you're feeling right now and for whatever reason. And I don't care if it's just because you lost the last softball game. If that brought you sadness, then you're going to sit with that sadness. Because it's not about the events you see, it's about the emotion. And then you offer yourself compassion for the sadness. And you breathe it in and out, and you transform it. You transform it. You let it die, and then you let it be reborn. That's the whole process. And then once you work with yourself, you extend it outward to maybe 2 or 3 people that you know are experiencing sadness. Even if you don't have names, you can probably picture them. And you extend it out, and you extend it out as big as your heart can get. That's the practice of Tonglen. That's the practice of compassion, of to suffer along with, to feel along with. The flip side of compassion, and the one that people don't talk about as much, is that if it means to feel along with in times of suffering, it also gets to mean the practice of feeling along with in someone's joy. Sometimes I don't know that we do that enough, but really allow ourselves to live in somebody else's joy. Be so happy for them and their successes, it's as if it's your own. That's the other part of compassion practice that I really love. Creativity is up next. If times of creativity or if times of breakdown and crisis don't yield to creativity, I don't know what does. These are times for artists. These times were built for artists and our expression. And I'm not talking just about oil painting. But whatever your unique act of creativity is, your unique expression in this world, your gift, it could be singing, dancing, grooming a dog, putting together an outfit. It could be setting a beautiful table, making a beautiful meal that your kids eat or don't eat. Your creativity comes from within you. Now is the time. Now is the time to really let it shine, because it will bring you joy, but it will also bring others joy when you share it. The other secret about creative time is that when you move into creative time, you move into that Kairos time. It's also a portal right into that space where all of a sudden past and future don't exist. There's just this now. There's just this eternal now. That's where healing happens. That's when connection happens. That's when all the good stuff happens. And finally, in times of crisis is when it's really important that we realign with our inner compass, our integrity, our inner alignment, our truth, our self-trust. Because especially as we start losing trust in the outer world, especially as it continues to fail us, that is when we turn inward and learn how to trust in ourselves in a deep, profound way. In a way that you know your yeses and your nos so clearly. You know your lines. You know what you will accept and what you will not accept. I call this finding your true north because it's like a compass that'll keep you on a path that is in alignment with your ethics, your convictions, and your morals. I actually encourage you to do this work right now. I have a whole course built on doing this work, finding your true north. And then there are so many other things too that I couldn't even get to. Practicing community, building community, more times in service, spending time staying awake and aware and making connections, and maybe something more that I didn't even get to today. I want to end with a quote by Joanna Macy. She's a Buddhist scholar. She says this: "The most remarkable feature of this historical moment on earth is not that we are on the way to destroying the world. We've actually been on that way for quite a while. It is that we are beginning to wake up as from a millennia-long sleep to a whole new relationship to our world, to ourselves, and to each other. We are all beginning to wake up. This is the calling of this time, and I hope that you accept this call." Thank you.
Wow. Well, let's take a moment to integrate some of this. I'd like you to take a deep breath and exhale. And one more. Wow. Okay. Well, there were just so many nuggets of wisdom and inspiration, and that is the theme for this month, is finding inspiration. So I found a lot of inspiration in some of the things that you said, and I hope that all of you found something that inspired you, that you could take away. And those of you who might be watching now or later, hope that you find something that you can take away to help create a better version of you, or a more expanded version of yourself. So thank you so much. I got to go back and watch this again. So Lake Harriet Spiritual Community is solely funded by generous donations. We don't have any other source of income, and so in just a moment the ushers will be passing the basket, and we ask that you give what you can to help support this amazing space. It needs a lot of work, and allow us to keep the lights on, the doors open, and to continue to offer fun, exciting, inspirational events. And if I didn't mention it earlier, December 21st, there's going to be a solstice celebration here as well, so come for that. And in the baskets, there are QR codes for Venmo. If you can't give today, consider becoming a regular donor by going to our website. There's a mechanism to set up a monthly donation. So we appreciate whatever you can do to continue to support this community. Thank you.
Let's sing together a song of joy. It's time for joy to begin. If we open up our hearts to joy, there's room for joy to come in. Joy, joy, a song of joy, heard above the din. If we open up our hearts to joy, there's room for joy to come in. Let's sing together a song of peace, time for peace to begin. If we open up our hearts to peace, there's room for peace to come in. Peace, peace, a song of peace, heard above the din. If we open up our hearts to peace, there's room for peace to come in. Let's sing together a song of love. It's time for love to begin. If we open up our hearts to love, there's room for love to come in. Love, love, a song of love, heard above the din. If we open up our hearts to love, there's room for love to come in. Let's sing together a song of truth. It's time for truth to begin. If we open up our hearts to truth, there's room for truth to come in. Truth, truth, a song of truth, heard above the din. If we open up our hearts to truth, there's room for truth to come in. Let's sing together a song of hope, time for hope to begin. If we open up our hearts to hope, there's room for hope to come in. Hope, hope, a song of hope, heard above the din. If we open up our hearts to hope, there's room for hope to come in. Hope, hope, a song of hope, heard above the din. If we open up our hearts to hope, there's room for hope to come in. Yeah. If we open up our hearts to truth, there's room for truth to come in. Yeah. If we open up our hearts to love.
Wow, thank you, Gary. That was a perfect song. The lyrics encompass some of the discussion today, so I appreciate it. Oh, that's okay. All right, if you will help me bless this wonderful abundance that we have in the basket and repeat after me. God's perfect love, flowing through me, blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Oh. Yeah, I was just looking at that. So we've got enough people today to circle up around the center section from the back to the front.
Oh, yeah.
And this is our tradition to circle up and have
Hi,
our
John.
speaker lead us
How are
in a
you?
closing.
Good to see you.
We could do it all the way to the back. All the way to the back. We could do it.
Yes, I think we can.
Yeah.
We can.
Yeah, it's enough. Good job. Good job.
Here we go. All right. Well, we're just going to return into the koshas for a moment. So just bring your feet, plant them firmly, pull your shoulders back and down. Feel that length through your spine, steadiness and ease in the body. Let's just touch each of the koshas briefly, starting with the outside physical layer, just feeling your body, your muscles, your bones. Moving in, touching your breath, nice and smooth, in and out. And check in with your Manomaya kosha, the mind and the emotions. And just notice any changes without any judgment or shoulds. And then come and touch the Vijnanamaya kosha, the higher mind, your intuition, your inner knowing, your inner trust, your true north. Just feel into that, the part of you that knows. And then to the bliss layer, the Annamaya Kosha, where we remember we are all one. Unity consciousness, that Kairos time, where we do not believe the lies of separation, of us versus them. Never again. And then touch into the soul. And let's get quiet for just a moment and see if there's a message directly from your soul. And let's come back out to the bliss layer, to the higher mind, to the emotions and the thoughts, to the breath, and back to the physical body. Bring your hands together in front of your heart. Namaste means the divine in me honors and sees the divine in you. Namaste.
Yes.
Thank you.